In this video, we're going to give you 7 steps to make your own Welsh love spoon. Step number 1 is to design your love spoon. Now I've selected a few different templates that we use on a regular basis. So you can see we've got some of our more popular love spoon designs. We make a template because we're making those on a daily basis, but the way they would have originally been designed is the same as this. Drawn out on paper. You can see there's a line down the middle, so if you want symmetry, you fold that paper in half like so, and either using a light box or simply a window, you can trace the one side onto the other side so that your design is then symmetrical. There are no rules or regs in design, so you can do whatever you want to do. If you're using a paper design, you can draw that out on paper and then stick it onto the wood itself. If you do reproduce your love spoons, then making a template, you can then draw around that and trace it onto the wood using a template. So step number 1 is to design your love spoon. Step number 2 is to source and select your timber. Now here at the Love Spoon Workshop, we have our wood coming in from various different sources. We have it coming in as offcuts from carpentry and joinery firms. We have logs that come in from tree surgeons and timber stores and other people who are working with trees and woods. We also recycle a lot of timber, so we get it from old furniture and from old buildings. We then process that and get it ready, get the thickness ready and the size that we want for marking out our love spoon. So some of the woods that are widely recommended, you've got things like flowering lime, basswood, a timber that we don't actually use that much ourselves. We do use things like teaks and mahoganies, all from recycled sources. And another timber that we use a lot of, again, recycling, is oak. And that is the wood that I'm actually going to carve then for this particular example. So step number 2 is to source and select your timber. Step number 3 is to mark our love spoon design onto the wood itself. Now before you do it, one thing that is important to do is to actually check the wood itself, check it over, because sometimes you might get splits in there, you might get something that's going to cause an issue, you may get a knot in there. You'll come across, as you're processing the wood, sometimes you may find a nail or something if it's from old furniture. So that's our next stage then, is that we're going to mark the love spoon onto the wood itself. Stage number 4 is to cut out your love spoon. Now here at the Love Spoon Workshop we use various methods. I'm going to start off using the bandsaw on this particular love spoon. We're going to use the scroll saw as well, but there are no rules or regulations when it comes to the Welsh love spoon. You can use things like these tools here. Traditionally, and here at the Love Spoon Workshop as well, we used to use things like the coping saw, the hand saw as well, and other ones like the pad saw. But as we mentioned with the love spoon, there is no rules or regs. You can use the tools that you have access to or the tools that you would like to use. So that's our 4th step on the journey of making a Welsh love spoon, is to cut the outline of the love spoon out. For those of you who are new to hand carving Welsh love spoons, remember that this is a process that you should enjoy. As with learning all skills, there are moments of frustration, but that is in essence what it's all about. Mistakes will happen, but the key part to it is how you respond to those mistakes and how you can overcome those problems. Remember, the love spoon, it is after all a labour of love.
So there we are, we're on to stage number 5. But this is to highlight a little point, and for those who can't understand me,
don't forget safety equipment. Okay, when you're working with wood, the dust, you need to protect your eyes from things like the scroll saw blades, anything that might come away in terms of wood. Protect your ears from the noise, and then the most important one of all probably is that dust mask. Protect yourself from that wood dust. So when you're cutting out, when you're using the different machines, remember your safety equipment. Step number 5 is to hand carve your love spoon.
so starting off, we're going to start off with the bowl. We've demonstrated this. There's a dedicated video showing exactly how to hand carve a bowl, so check that one out if you want a more sort of in-depth explanation of how to do it. But we're going to do the same process, just marking it out like so, just getting that rough egg shape, and then we'll demonstrate as well how we do the stop cuts down into the wood, into our shape of our heart and our eternity sign. And as I said, we go across to the time lapse. So just start off with the bowl. If you're using the same sort of vise as ourselves, you'll notice we have a wooden block underneath. And it's always important to remember to move that block. So when we hit down into the wood, that pressure, that impact goes through the block. If I hit it there, there's a good chance that the spoon will either sort of flip out of the vise, or I could split it. So that is worth bearing in mind. We get asked as well, why do you not have a block that's the width of that? It's because all the different spoons, they're all different widths. So you just use a standard block. We've got 3 different sizes that we use. We use a standard block, and then we just move it around in the vise as we need to. You can't have a block basically for every single design. They're all different widths and different sizes. So you can see we're just doing some stop cuts, just like so. We then cut into the stop cuts like so. And as we mentioned, we're going to go across now into a time lapse so you can see the whole love spoon taking shape.
Step number 6 is to hand sand your love spoon. So at this stage, we're very much sort of focusing on the finishing of our love spoon. Now when we're doing the back of the bowl, when we hand sand the back of the bowl, we will use a block and a sandpaper, like so.
But when I'm actually shaping the roundness here, because it is curved, I can't actually use a block. So we're just using a piece of sandpaper and we are sanding with the grain. The grain is running vertically, so it's important not to go across like that because you will scratch the wood. You'll put little lines into your finish. So it is important when you're hand sanding to sand with the grain. So to hand sand, what we've done then, we've started off with sandpaper like so, and what we actually use ourselves here at the Lovespoon workshop, we use old sanding belts. So we cut up, when our sanding belts from the sanding machine, when they start to get a bit older, instead of throwing them away, we actually use them to do our sanding. So this one here is an old piece off the belt sander. That's about a P120 grade, and then the one I'm working with here is P240. And depending on the finish that you want, then you can go up, you know, up above 300. Some people go to 500s. It's whatever you sort of want to do. And again, it's how much time you're going to spend on it. When it comes to sanding the bowl, now normally I wouldn't do it in the vise. I would normally hold it in one hand to sand the bowl. Again, we're working with the direction of the grain and we're just sanding it out like so. Now it is also important to state that some people prefer the finish that you get just off the gouge, off the chisel. But again, the nice thing with that, there's no rules or regs. If you prefer the finish that you get off the chisel or gouge, leave it like that. But if you would like to use sandpapers to give yourself a smooth finish, there's nothing wrong with that either. Step 7, and our final stage, is to finish the Lovespoon itself. The method that we use here at the Lovespoon workshop to finish the spoons is to shellac them. And the reason we use that, it brings out the character of the grain, and it's a relatively quick process. In total, we would normally do 3 coats of shellac sand and sealer, rubbing it down with a very fine sandpaper, something above sort of P300 in between coats. So that's our final stage, is to shellac our Lovespoon. There are other methods that you can use. You can use things like waxes, some people use oils, whatever you want to really. But that is how we actually do it here. And in terms of the method then, the same as the other sort of parts of the process, what we would advise you to do is to work with the grain. Other parts then, the first coat, we tend to put a little bit more on. The second coat then is not quite as sort of thick. And then the third coat then is a lighter coat. So there we are, that's our first coat of shellac, and you can see how that really brings out the colour and the character in the oak. There it is, that is our finished Welsh Lovespoon. Now I hope this little guide, our 7 steps for making your own Welsh Lovespoon, we hope it proves useful. Anyone who's going to start off, if this is going to be used as a bit of a basis to start off making your own Welsh Lovespoons, remember to put a comment below, let us know how you got on. If you're already making Lovespoons, feel free again
put down in the comment section, let us know what was the first love spoon that you had a go at making. Remember as well, if you've enjoyed what we've done here, put a like on the video and subscribe and ring that bell so you'll know when we upload another video, hopefully helping with wood carving skills and the process of hand carving Welsh love spoons. Thank you all again.